sun, on channels you and your family interact with every day and somehow claim to be fair. When we come back, the destruction we saw on Wednesday was not murder. Is what we saw the beginning or the end? Stay with us.
Let's have trial by combat. Stand up and fight. Today is the day American patriots start taking down names and kicking ass.
That was the rhetoric that the Trump protesters heard before the mob was created and stormed the Capitol. Casey Hunt, what is the future of Mo Brooks, Josh Hawley, and Ted Cruz in the United States Congress?
Well, Chuck, I think it's still an open question. But again, I think that their colleagues felt in a way that they have not experienced before, even after 4 years of the Trump administration. They were personally in danger, and the rhetoric that some of their fellow members, as well as the President of the United States, offered on Wednesday is what led directly to the mob. And it was an extraordinarily close call in the Senate, Chuck. The doors were shut just 1 minute, essentially, before the mob reached the doors into the chamber, and some of those heroic actions are what protected the place. I think that while many critics would have said, of course, it's too little too late for the Republican Party, I think Senator Tubbs reflected the depth of the change that has happened there. And I think, for those of us who have covered the work in those hours, for a very, very long time, it's impossible to understand the degree to which this shook faith in a system that everyone is supposed to be bought into.
And that's what I want to know here, guys. Is this the beginning of something or the end of something? Jay Johnson, I want you to react to something that Adam Serwer wrote in The Atlantic on Thursday. The Washington Post described the insurrectionists who stormed the Capitol as would-be saboteurs of a 244-year-old democracy. But true democracy in America is only 55 years old, dating back to 1965, the year the Voting Rights Act guaranteed suffrage, at least on paper, to all citizens, regardless of race. That we've actually had 55 years has been a precarious multiracial democracy in this country. What say you, Jay Johnson?
Chuck, of the many images, shocking images from Wednesday, I think the one that most jolted me was the image that was shown earlier on this program of the Confederate flag being paraded through the U.S. Capitol. Now, I have ancestors. My great-great-grandmother's brother fled slavery in Virginia when he was a teenager, and here he is, and enlisted in the U.S. Union Army to prevent exactly that from happening. We fought an entire civil war to prevent that from happening.
You know, Peggy Noonan, the amount of anti-Semites, racists that were, frankly, mainstreamed by Donald Trump over the last few years has rattled a lot of people's concern about whether this democracy is going to hold up. What say you?
I say America with its barbaric yawp can shock us and upset us very often. We do manage to hold on, and I expect that will be true, but I think for a lot of people, the indelible image of this week is the idea that the Capitol, this great and grand building, the one we put on postcards if you visit Washington, D.C. and write home, that it could be overrun by vandals in a moment, that an action could be taken and elected leaders are fleeing for their lives. I think this was a shock to so many people, especially to the young, to whom we have to show we don't allow this. We stopped that right now. We stopped it this week.
I hope so. Hallie Jackson, what happens to Donald Trump on January 21st? He doesn't leave.
He doesn't go anywhere, Chuck. Physically, obviously, he's gone from the White House. He'll be presumably in Florida. But I have to tell you, this is a president who is so defiant. These calls, these ideas that perhaps he would resign, it is, at this exact moment in time, almost unthinkable to see how the president would currently retreat in the face of pressure, something he has almost never before done, and certainly not when the stakes are this high. I thought it was interesting that Senator Toomey on your show earlier described it as not viable that the president could have another shot in 2024. There are people in and around the White House who believe the same, that the president has in essence disqualified himself. Perhaps he will say he will run, but there is not a real sense that he could have an actual shot. Although, Chuck, the people who support him, the people who he has activated in essence over the last 4 years, they are with him until the end. And that group is not going anywhere. The president will take advantage of a media ecosystem, not mainstream media, but an ecosystem that will give him oxygen for years to come.
If that is what happens and this Republican Party allows Donald Trump to still be an influential figure, it will end up in the ash bin of history. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. We're going to be back next week. This democracy intact. Because if it's Sunday, let's meet the press.
This is Westwood One. From the nation's capital, this is WDCH-FM Bowie, Baltimore, Washington, WJC-FM HD2 Catonsville, Bloomberg 99.1. Now a global news update.
Pennsylvania Senator Pat Toomey is calling on President Trump to resign. He tells CNN State of the Union it's the best possible outcome following violence at the U.S. Capitol last week. Toomey admitted he's not confident that Trump will indeed resign. He also suggested there could be a criminal case to be made following the violence that turned deadly. Toomey added that he believes Trump has disqualified himself from any future office. House Majority Whip James Clyburn says it could be a while before the Senate holds an impeachment trial against the president. On CNN State of the Union, the South Carolina Democrat admitted he's concerned, and so is House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, about the Senate being distracted if they have to conduct a trial. The FDNY is giving the FBI information on firefighters who were involved in the attack on the Capitol this past Wednesday. Ashok Bala has more.
Frank Dwyer is a spokesperson for the fire department, and he said they, quote, received anonymous allegations that active or retired members were present at the events at the United States Capitol on January 6th, and as required has provided that information to the FBI. At least 16 people are up on federal charges so far, with many others facing lesser charges. 5 people were killed as a result of the attack, including a Capitol police officer. Ashok Bala, New York.
Britain's Queen Elizabeth is now vaccinated against COVID-19. Cameron Fairchild with details.
Surprising
Queen and
because
Prince Philip
those people
received
work somewhere.
shots Saturday
They
at
live
Windsor
somewhere.
Castle. The BBC says the royal couple is among the nearly 1.5 million UK residents to have been given the first dose of the vaccine. The royals are considered part of Britain's high priority group to receive the vaccine.
More than $1 billion is up for grabs as the nation's 2 biggest lottery jackpots continue to roll. Since no one matched all 6 numbers in last night's Powerball drawing, the top prize soars to $550 million. The Mega Millions is worth an estimated $600 million. The next Mega Millions drawing will be Tuesday, followed by the Powerball on Wednesday night. I'm Lisa Taylor.
I'm Chris Wallace. Calls grow to remove President Trump from office, with just 10 days left in his administration. The president facing accusations. His words helped set that deadly assault on the Capitol in motion. With his inner circle shrinking, a push is underway to remove him from power.
It's time to vote the 25th Amendment and to end this nightmare.
And Democrats discuss an alternative.
If the Vice President and Cabinet do not act, the Congress may be prepared to move forward with impeachment.
But the president tries to head off calls for removal by finally admitting he lost.
A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power.
We'll discuss the final turbulent days of the Trump presidency with former White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, who resigned from an administration post this week, and the possibility of a second impeachment with House Majority Whip James Clyburn. Plus, Twitter bans President Trump from its platform, saying his recent tweets glorify violence. We'll ask our Sunday panel about the power of big tech to restrict free speech. All right now on Fox News.
We saw a mob of insurrectionists storm the Capitol, lay waste to the offices of elected leaders, invade the Senate chamber, and even sit in the chair the Vice President occupied moments before. And now this. We saw a non-scalable 7-foot fence go up around the Capitol grounds. For all the talk about the barrier on our southern border, this is the wall many will remember as the true mark of Donald Trump's presidency. This hour, we'll discuss it all. The resignations, the calls to remove the president, and the search to find some way to put the pieces of our government back together. In a moment, we'll speak with former White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney and House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn. But first, let's turn to David Spott at the White House with the latest on demands for the president to step down or be forced out.
Chris, there is a very real possibility Donald Trump could become the first president in American history to be impeached twice. It just takes the majority of the House to do so, and Democrats are chomping at the bit.
I want to thank you all.
Minutes after President Trump spoke to the crowd, melee inside and outside of the United States Capitol. 5 people, including a Capitol Police officer, died. Trump administration officials continue to submit resignations, including Cabinet Secretaries Elaine Chao and Betsy DeVos. A second impeachment could happen in just days.
We don't need a lengthy debate. The president's abuse of power, his incitement of a mob against the duly elected representative body of the United States is a manifestly